Okay, folks, looks like we're kind of, I don't know, tiptoeing closer to the edge of you know it. Perhaps something we've all been dreading, the sequel we all fear the most, World War III, because Joe Biden and his advisors seem to be on a super fast rush and getting more money and weapons and even permission to use U.S. missiles uh, in Russia to intensify, to make things go to 11 in the war in Ukraine. And say it with me, folks, with the people all the way in the back. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, I don't know. Knowing the fact that Putin said, hey, any U.S. missiles going into Russia would be seen as an escalation and U.S. harassment and engagement in the theater, which means, SpaghettiOs. If you're walking outside and you see mushroom clouds in the sky, hope that wall of fire gets you fast because the survivors will envy the dead. Because even though Joe Biden seems to be a little bit elsewhere at the moment in his cult uniform, and yes, I've played this before, but I think it's only important. As Biden walks into the woods, like the senile goat that he is, where you going, Joe? Where you going, Joe? Where you going, Joe? Joe, where you going? It seems we're on the brink of World War III. So, first of all, as we all know, Trump has been, has indicated that he wants to do peace talks and, de-escalate the conflict. I don't know how he can pull it off with the Biden administration turning up the heat because let's just face it, maybe I'm going to speak for myself. I don't want to be vaporized by atomic fire. But let's play this video from Caitlin Johnson, who has done a lot of great work. Again, Caitlin Johnstone. If you're not following her, please do so. She has done phenomenal content.
Biden ramps up nuclear brinkmanship on his way out the door. The New York Times reports that the Biden administration has authorized Ukraine to use U.S.-supplied long-range missiles to strike Russian and North Korean military targets inside Russia. Yet another dangerous escalation of nuclear brinkmanship in this horrific proxy war. The Times correctly notes that authorizing Ukraine to use ATACMS, which have a range of about 190 miles, has long been a contentious issue in the Biden administration for fear of provoking military retaliations against the U.S. from Russia. This reckless escalation has been authorized despite an acknowledgement from the anonymous U.S. officials who spoke to the New York Times that they, quote, do not expect the shift to fundamentally alter the course of the war. As Anti-War's Dave DeCamp notes, Vladimir Putin said back in September that if NATO allows Ukraine to use Western-supplied weapons for long-range strikes inside Russian territory, it would mean NATO countries, quote, are at war with Russia, end quote. This is about as unambiguous a threat as you'll ever see. New York Times reports that Biden's policy shift comes 2 months before President-elect Donald J. Trump takes office, having vowed to limit further support for Ukraine. And it is here worth noting that last week it was reported by The Telegraph that British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron had been scheming to thwart any attempt by Trump to scale back U.S. support for Ukraine by pushing Biden to authorize long-range missile strikes into Russian territory.
I just want to acknowledge some people in the chats. First of all, shout out to the Kick people. The Accord Lord says it's the final FU from Joe Biden because now that he's out of office, he might as well make things difficult. Now, I want to be clear on this, okay? In 2022, when this war got started, it was stupid. It didn't need to happen in the first place. And I want to make it very clear that there were Democratic and Republican lawmakers that earned a huge financial killing when this war started. If anyone, please check, if you have time, folks, please check out the account Unusual Whales and check out their website. They had did a phenomenal job way back in 2022 and even up until now too as well, calling out the insider trading dealings of a lot of these politicians, both Democrat and Republican, currently serving in the United States House and Senate. Yes, we know that there's a new crop that's being that got elected in, but there's still some of the old guard that are still in there. And many of these politicians didn't seem to be caring too much because there was a profit to be made. But here's the thing, politicians, when you go hide in your bunkers, food and air and water can run out. And by the way, you know, when the storm does pass, do you really think that once you crawl out of your little holes, the survivors will be welcoming you? Oh, look, it's our fantastic politicians that are here. Look how plump and well fed they are. Don't they look delicious? I want to pull up an article here from RT just before we continue on with that video. This is from RT, just to trigger the libs. Biden going against voters on Ukraine war. U.S. President Joe Biden is dangerously trying to start World War III before he leaves office in January. Republican Representative MTG, you know me, has claimed. The lawmaker from Georgia, was reacting to reports that Biden had lifted a prohibition on the use of U.S.-supplied long-range missiles by Kiev for attacks deep inside Russian territory. The policy change has been reported by the New York Times, the Associated Press, Axios, and other news outlets, all of which cited anonymous sources. Hey, does anyone remember when the Squad actually had a draft letter talking for a ceasefire in Ukraine, and then when it was revealed that it was them who did it, they blamed it on an intern? I do. Don't have the blurring effect, folks. I remember. This war could have been stopped a long time ago. The report decision goes against the expressed desire of the American people not to fund or fight foreign wars. Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote on X, formerly known as Twitter, but I call it Phoenix, referring to the election of Donald Trump as the next U.S. president earlier this month. He campaigned on America First platform and claimed that he would end the Ukraine conflict in 24 hours if elected. Trump won, securing a popular majority as well as the Electoral College. Republican Senator Mike Lee mused that liberals love war because it facilitates bigger government. In reaction to the news, Elon Musk, a key Trump confidant, agreed with this assertion. Biden is pointlessly escalating with 2 months to go because his team knows that the blob, the permanent national security and foreign policy community in the U.S., is unhappy they didn't do enough to arm Ukraine. Pro-Trump venture capitalist David Sachs said, securing permission to use Western-donated weapons to strike targets deep inside internationally recognized Russian territory was part of the victory plan proposed in September by Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky to Biden and Trump. Sources claim that the U.S. president has now granted limited permission to do so with ground-launched ATACMs ballistic missiles. So, wow, what could go wrong? Kiev is reportedly allowed to use weapons against North Korean troops. Oh, I'm pretty sure the people in South Korea are going to love that, right? Which Ukraine and its backers claim to have been deployed in Russia's Kursk region. Zelensky ordered an incursion there in August, stating that it would give his government a bargaining chip during eventual peace talks. Neither Russia nor North Korea have confirmed or denied the reported deployment. This month, the two nations ratified a bilateral agreement which includes provisions for providing assistance in the event of a foreign invasion. Say it with me, folks. What could possibly go wrong?
But it is also true that the day before the U.S. election, Mike Waltz, Trump's next national security advisor, had himself endorsed the idea of authorizing long-range missile strikes into Russia with the goal of pressuring Moscow to end the war. His plan for disentangling the U.S. from the conflict entails ramping up sanctions on Russia and taking the handcuffs off the long-range weapons we provide Ukraine in order to pressure Putin into eagerly accepting a peace deal. So while this is being framed as an administration that's more hawkish on Russia, executing a maneuver that's designed to hamstring the peace-mongering of an incoming administration that's less favorable to assisting Ukraine, in reality, it may just be goal assisting the next administration in a policy change it had planned on implementing anyway. Either way, it's insane. Putin ordered changes to Russia's nuclear doctrine in September in order to ward off these sorts of escalations by lowering the threshold at which nuclear weapons could be used to defend the Russian Federation. And they're just barreling right past that bright red line like they barreled over the red lines which led to the invasion of Ukraine. And the fact that they're adding yet another nuclear-armed state into the mix with North Korea just adds more gravy for the nuclear brinkmanship pot roast. At one point in 2022, U.S. intelligence agencies reportedly assessed that the odds of Russia using a nuclear weapon in Ukraine was as high as 50%.
That's way too high. Even 1% is too high. How about 0%? How about negative 0.0%? And before anyone says that's not a number, it's fine. Listen, negative 0.0% is fine with me because I don't want there to be any weapons of mass destruction used, period.
But the Biden administration kept pushing forward with this proxy war anyway. These freaks are taking insane risks to advance agendas that stand to yield the slimmest of benefits, even by their own assessments. We are living in dark and dangerous times.
Who's not nervous? I am. Now, real quick here, I do want to say that this video did come out on November 17th, exactly, or maybe November 16th to be more correct. And I just want to pull this up as, there was Trump speaking to Zelensky because, hey, Trump, listen, I'm not telling you to do anything, Who am I to tell you to do anything? But seriously, maybe now's the time to put your foot down on this before things go out of pocket.
Another meeting in the near future between you.
Could very well happen, but I think the president said it the best. This is a war that should have never happened. It should have never happened, and it wouldn't have happened. It's a shame, but this is a war that should have never happened, and we'll get it solved. It's a complicated puzzle, very complicated puzzle, but we'll.
To be clear, that this video came out before Biden gave the thumbs up for Zelensky to use U.S. missiles deep into Russian territory.
Get it solved, and people get on with their lives. Too many people dead. Too many beautiful cities. I've seen those cities are so beautiful, and that, I don't know how you can ever rebuild them the way they were. It's not possible.
You have to come, by the way, to see our city.
I will.
Zelensky's like, please give me money like Uncle Joe did.
It's a beautiful country, beautiful weather, beautiful everything, but we have.
Hey, Zelensky, and I mean, seriously, dude, I mean, are you always going to be dressing up like this? I mean, like, the flair has gone away. Remember in 2022 when, this guy was like the front cover on Time magazine, and then in 2023 he was just like all alone.
Have to get this over with, but it's a war, and the president agrees. This is a war that should have never happened. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Well, here's something that's rather frightening. Now, of course, this is in subtitles. You'll be able to see the comments down below, but not. This isn't really. These are comments from Putin. Say with me. What could go wrong?
Происходит попытка подмены понятий, потому что речь не идет о разрешении или запрете киевскому режиму наносить удары по российской территории. Он и так наносит с помощью беспилотных летательных аппаратов и другими средствами. Но когда речь идет об использовании высокоточного оружия большой дальности западного производства, это совершенно другая история.
So at this point, obviously, he is speaking, and you could if you're reading the subtitles, or if right now, if you're on the road listening to us, hey, shout out to you. Please be safe while driving. Putin is pressing the point of using, again, Western weapons deep inside Russian territory is now a whole other different story in regards to the escalation of the conflict and what it could mean for NATO and the United States.
Дело в том, что я уже об этом говорил, и любые эксперты это подтвердят, и у нас, и на Западе, наносить удары современными высокоточными системами большой дальности западного производства украинская армия не в состоянии. Она не может этого делать. Это возможно только с использованием разведданных со спутников, которыми Украина не располагает. Это данные только со спутников или Евросоюза, либо Соединенных Штатов, в общем, с натовских спутников.
So he's indicating that in regards to hitting deep within Russian territory, those missiles would need satellites from the European nations or the United States in regards to making accurate hits deep inside Russian territory. And then as stated before, that opens up Pandora's box. So I also want to make a correction here too, probably because Joe Biden is so senile. This is probably, again, process elimination, maybe Joe's handlers. As we all know, Joe isn't all there, so his handlers who handle his medicine or pretty much have been abusing this old guy are telling him, hey, Joe, you need to sign this or else the beatings will intensify.
Это первое. Второе, и очень важное, может быть, ключевое, заключается в том, что полетные задания в эти ракетные системы могут, по сути, вносить только военнослужащие стран НАТО. Украинские военнослужащие делать этого не могут. И поэтому речь идет не о том, чтобы разрешать украинскому режиму наносить удары по России этим оружием или не разрешать. Речь идет о том, чтобы принять решение о том, что страны НАТО напрямую участвуют в военном конфликте или нет. Если это решение будет принято, это будет означать не что иное, как...
So right here is where the scary part means. If these missiles are hitting targets within Russian territory, and if it is quite clear that there's coordination, it'll mean nothing more than direct participation of NATO countries and the United States. That means, let's get ready for that sequel, WW3. How will you survive the post-apocalypse? Are you going to be like Mad Max or Fallout? Are you going to be a boy and a dog? Or will it be more of the greatest horror movie ever, Threads?
Прямое участие стран НАТО, Соединенных Штатов, европейских стран в войне на Украине. Это их прямое участие. И это уже, конечно, существенным образом меняет саму суть, саму природу конфликта. Это будет означать, что страны НАТО, США, европейские страны воюют с Россией. А если это так, то, имея в виду изменение самой сути этого конфликта, мы будем принимать соответствующие решения, исходя из...
And then right here, I'll read this for you. We will make appropriate decisions based on the threats that will be posed to the U.S.
тех угроз, которые нам будут создаваться.
That will be posed to us, sorry. So we will make the appropriate decisions based on threats that will be posed on us. So that's all rather frightening as we're heading to work or as we're waking up, going to school, or doing whatever we have to do to survive in this world that is dangerously and understandably out of our control. But Biden's handlers, I know a lot of you are upset that the vote blue, no matter who machine failed miserably and crapped itself. But do you have to turn the whole world on fire? But also, I want to point this out to Donald Trump. Like, look, I'm not expecting much from the Republican establishment or Republican lawmakers because there were a lot of Republican lawmakers that made a huge financial killing in 2022. Shout out once again to Unusual Whales. Who doesn't love the insider trading, right? Know this, that if any of you were able to do that, if any of you did that, you would never see the light of day ever again. Don't kid yourself here. But as we all know, I played a video earlier with Zelensky standing next to Trump, but I want to play this video shot again to Hotspot. Zelensky laughs and dismisses the idea that Trump could force peace negotiations, emphasizing that Ukraine is an independent country and could do whatever it wants. Listen, Z, can I call you Z? Old man Biden's gone. Okay? The gravy train is over. The house of Biden's over. You got to go to the peace table now. Because this whole idea of the war escalating doesn't sit well with me or anyone else here or anyone else around the world.
Перше, сильна Україна. Вона повинна бути сильною для будь-якої дипломатії. Хочу ще раз це підкреслити.
Але США не лише потенційний посередник в переговорах, це країна, яка надає величезні обсяги допомоги Україні і яка може спонукати нас до того, щоб ми сіли за стіл переговорів. Який меседж ви отримали від Дональда Трампа під час тих контактів, які...
So the reporters are asking, what kind of message did you get from Donald Trump? Because the United States is like the biggest arbiter of giving resources, materials, money, weapons, etc., 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 to Ukraine. Let's hear Zelensky's answer.
у вас з ним були? Тобто як він каже? Він каже, я стану президентом і сідайте за стіл переговорів. Як це виглядає?
Я думаю, що він так не каже. Ми незалежна Україна, і мені здається, в час цієї війни наш народ, і я особисто в перемовинах зі Сполученими Штатами Америки і з Трампом, і з Байденом, і з іншими європейськими лідерами довели, що з нами риторика «сідай і слухай» не працюючи. І це не через те, що ми такі, а через те, що так ми повинні відноситись в принципі до будь-якої країни, будь-якого народу, будь-якого лідера. Поважати. Це, в принципі, рівність, одна з цих цінностей, за які ми боремося сьогодні.
I don't think he understands how this whole thing works, okay? Let me explain it. U.S. has the money. They have the weapons. They have all the things that are shiny and pretty. Okay? Once Trump comes into office, I am ever hopeful that he could succeed in maybe doing a negotiation. I don't think it'll be 24 hours. But the Biden administration is not laying down the groundwork to really make sure that there's going to be a peaceful transition of power. So I don't think the liberals are going to be doing anything similar to January 6th, but let's just say Biden and the Democrats and everyone else are going to be laying down the foundations to make this war almost impossible to end. And this war has to end. The last thing anyone wants is this conflict to go outside of Ukraine, but it seems to me and everyone else that's watching this that you have those in the military-industrial complex and the last vestiges of the Biden administration to be pushing forward to make sure it's difficult as hell for it to end. And I am rather fearful of this because when you see somebody like Putin, if you're going to be, playing chicken with him, he's going to say game on. We attack them with our missiles, they can attack us. It's tit for tat. You punch somebody, they're going to punch you right back. And I think we all can agree if you're minding your own business and someone tries to take a swing at you or connects, hey, you're going to push back. You're going to fight back because you're being attacked. And I want to remind everybody, too, especially those that were cheerleading this war. Wars start when you want them to and when you please. Yes, absolutely. Let's face it. If you're the aggressor, yeah, wars start when you please, but they don't end when you want. And this whole conflict could have been ended. And both sides, I would look at it like this. This is a war in which ego, pride is getting the better of everybody. The idea of diplomacy seems to be forgotten around the entire table. Peace talks need to happen immediately. Since 2022, this war has been going on. What have we seen? A waste of treasury, a waste of money, a waste of resources, and a waste of human life. The most important thing of it all, human life. People are dying. How many more need to die before those who are making money are satisfied? How long does this war have to go on until it's finally enough? You would think that maybe while it was under his watch, Biden or his handlers would put a stop to it. But that's going too far because we're assuming that the people in Washington, D.C. are human. They ain't.